The 1946 wheat penny looks like an ordinary coin from the years right after World War II. But one rare variety hides a tiny mark inside the word liberty that most people never notice. Collectors have paid up to $2,500 for the right example. This is known as the buy-die crack. As a coin die wears out, it can develop small cracks. When molten metal is forced into one of those cracks during striking, it creates a raised line on every coin struck by that damaged die. On some 1946 wheat pennies, a crack forms between the B and E in Liberty, creating what looks like a tiny capital 1. Instead of reading Liberty, the word appears to read Bayardy. That tiny extra line is what collectors call the buy error. Now grab a magnifying glass and look closely at the word Liberty on the left side of your coin. Focus on the space between the B and the E. If you see a small raised vertical line between those letters, you may have found the buy-die crack. Make sure it is actually raised above the surface and not just a scratch. The stronger and more clearly defined that extra line is, the more desirable the coin becomes. Buy-die cracks are a favorite among Lincoln cent collectors because they only appear on certain worn dies. While they exist on several wheat penny dates, strong examples on a 1946 cent are much harder to find, especially in higher grades. Since most people never inspect the lettering that closely, many have been spent or overlooked for decades. One collector bought a $5 jar of wheat pennies at a yard sale. As he examined each coin under a loupe, he spotted a tiny raised line between the B and E on a 1946 cent. After the coin was authenticated by a professional grading service, it later sold for approximately $2,500, turning a simple yard sale purchase into an incredible discovery. So check your 1946 wheat penny carefully. Look inside the word Liberty for that tiny raised line between the B and E. If you find a genuine buy-die crack, you could be holding a coin worth up to $2,500. But the next penny hides its secret in the mint mark, where the same letter was stamped twice.
The 1975 Canadian penny looks completely ordinary. The reverse shows 1 cent above 2 maple leaves, the date below the left leaf, Canada across the bottom, and the small designer initials beside the right leaf. Millions of people have seen this design. Very few have examined the date closely enough to recognize the differences between normal wear, machine damage, and a real mint variety. The first feature to inspect is known as the doubled 197. Place the coin under a strong light. Use at least 5 times magnification. Focus on the first 3 digits of the date. Look along the edges of the 1, 9, and 7. A genuine doubled feature may show an additional raised outline, separation, or a repeated portion of the design. The extra image should rise above the coin surface because it was created by the die. Do not confuse this with a flat shelf beside the number. Flat, smeared, or shelf-like doubling is commonly associated with strike movement or die deterioration. It may look dramatic in a photograph, but collectors usually pay more for clear, separated, raised doubling. The second feature is the doubled 7. Inspect the upper horizontal bar and diagonal stem of the final 7. Look for a second raised edge running beside the original number. Compare its height and texture with the main digit. A scratch will cut into the metal. Real doubling is part of the raised design. The third error to inspect is a rotated die. Hold the coin upright with the queen's portrait facing you. Pinch the top and bottom between 2 fingers. Flip it vertically, like turning a page from bottom to top. The reverse should appear in its expected upright position. If the maple leaves and lettering are noticeably rotated, the dies may have been misaligned when the coin was struck. A small rotation may attract limited interest. A dramatic rotation can become far more collectible, especially when the coin is certified and the rotation is measured. The fourth possibility is a clipped planchette. Before a coin is struck, blank metal discs are punched from large metal strips. If one punch overlaps an area already cut from the strip, the next blank may be missing a curved section. A genuine curved clip normally has a smooth, rounded missing area. The rim opposite the clip may also appear weak because metal did not flow normally during the strike. This is different from someone cutting or grinding the coin later. Post-mint cutting usually leaves sharp edges, tool marks, or disturbed metal. Now comes the rarity question. A normal circulated 1975 cent is not rare. The date alone does not create a jackpot. Even attractive uncirculated examples usually sell for modest amounts. The premium comes from a strong identifiable error, excellent preservation, original surfaces, and third-party certification. Auction information shows how large the gap can be between hype and reality. Certified MS67 examples have averaged roughly 457 Canadian dollars. A doubled 197 example graded MS66 recorded around 100 Canadian dollars. A doubled 7 graded MS66 recorded around 70 Canadian dollars. Those are meaningful premiums for a 1-cent coin, but they are nowhere near $126,500. That distinction matters. An online seller can ask any price. An asking price proves nothing. A completed certified auction sale is stronger evidence because it shows what an actual buyer paid. Look again at the 1975 coin in the image. Its dark areas, uneven color, and surface marks appear consistent with circulation and environmental exposure. Those features may make the coin visually interesting, but they do not automatically create an error. The correct approach is simple. Inspect the date for raised doubling. Test the die rotation. Examine the edge for a natural curved clip. Then inspect the queen's portrait for any repeated design. Never clean it. Never polish it. Never scrape away dark material. Cleaning can remove the original surface and reduce collector interest. Comment the word maple if you have now checked a 1975 penny under magnification. That tells me you are actually inspecting the coin instead of guessing from its color. Next, we move to a 1974 cent connected with one of the strangest documented combinations in this group. Research basis: 1975 auction averages and recorded double dates.
Number 4. The 1956 D wheat penny. At first glance, it looks like just another old penny. Millions were struck in Denver and most people would never give one a second look. But hidden beneath the date is a tiny detail so easy to miss that countless collectors have spent years searching for it. It is an error that most people overlook completely. In fact, many of these pennies have been spent, rolled, and passed from hand to hand because no one realized what they were holding. Yet the right example has sold for thousands of dollars and remains one of the most popular Lincoln cent varieties ever discovered. The secret is hidden in the mint mark. That small letter D below the date tells you the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Today, mint marks are added to the master die, so every working die is identical. But back in the 1950s, things were done very differently. Each working die received its mint mark by hand. A mint employee placed a steel punch over the die and struck it with a hammer. If the first punch landed too high, too low, or at the wrong angle, it had to be punched again. When the second punch failed to line up perfectly with the first, both impressions remained in the die forever. Every coin struck from that die carried the exact same mistake. That error is known as a repunched mint mark, or RPM. Now here is what makes this variety so exciting. The mistake is incredibly small, but once you know where to look, you can never unsee it. Instead of one clean D, you'll notice traces of another D hiding underneath or beside the main mint mark. Sometimes the second impression peeks out from the left, sometimes from the right. On stronger examples, the extra impression is surprisingly easy to spot under magnification. It is like finding the fingerprint of the die itself, frozen into the coin forever. So grab your 1956 D wheat penny and examine the mint mark carefully. A simple coin loop with 10 times magnification is usually enough. Tilt the coin slowly under a bright light. Does the D look perfectly normal, or do you see extra curves, split edges, or part of another D underneath it? Genuine repunched mint marks show clear, rounded doubling because both impressions were part of the die before the coin was ever struck. That is very different from machine doubling, which usually looks flat, shelf-like, or smeared. Machine doubling happens during the strike and generally carries little or no premium. A true RPM shows distinct separation between two separate punch impressions. Collectors have been fascinated by repunched mint marks for decades because they represent a part of U.S. mint history that can never happen again. Once mint marks were added directly to the master die, this entire class of varieties disappeared. That makes older RPMs especially appealing. Every genuine example tells the story of a mint worker correcting a tiny mistake that accidentally created a collectible treasure. Strong RPMs on the 1956D are not common, especially in higher grades. Most entered circulation immediately and spent decades changing hands. They picked up scratches, wear, and damage long before anyone thought to inspect the mint mark. Finding one today with a bold repunched D and attractive original surfaces is far more difficult than most people imagine. That combination of scarcity, historical significance, and collector demand is exactly what gives these coins their value. One collector learned that lesson by accident. While sorting through a small box of wheat pennies inherited from a family member, he noticed something unusual about one coin. The mint mark looked almost blurry, but not because it was worn. Under a loupe, a second D appeared beneath the first. Unsure what he had found, he compared it with photographs of known RPM varieties and realized it matched perfectly. The coin was sent to a professional grading service, authenticated as a genuine repunched mint mark, and later sold to a Lincoln cent specialist for several $1,000s. What looked like an ordinary penny turned out to be the standout coin in the entire collection. So before you ignore another 1956D wheat penny, take a few extra seconds to inspect that tiny mint mark below the date. It may look insignificant, but it could reveal one of the most desirable mint mark varieties of the wheat penny series. A strong, authenticated example in excellent condition can be worth thousands of dollars, making it well worth a careful look before you spend it. But the next wheat penny features doubling that doesn't stop at the mint mark. It spreads across the design itself, creating one of the boldest and most dramatic varieties collectors hope to find.
Sales. The 1946 penny belongs to the King George VI period. Its age makes it appealing, but age alone does not create high value. Most circulated examples survived in large numbers. The difference between a low-value worn coin and a serious collector coin is usually surface preservation, original color, strike quality, and certification. The first feature to inspect is the doubled 46. Focus on the final two digits of the date. Search the curved portion of the 6 and the vertical and angled parts of the 4. A true doubled feature should have raised separation. It should not look like a flat scrape beside the digit. A certified MS64 example identified as double 46 recorded a sale around 22 Canadian dollars. That is a premium over many ordinary circulated examples, but it shows that not every double date becomes a fortune. The second feature is a die clash beneath the maple leaves. A die clash occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a blank between them. Each die may receive a faint impression of the opposite design. Later coins can show unexpected raised lines or shapes in areas where they do not belong. On a 1946 cent, inspect the open field beneath and around the maple leaves. Also, inspect the obverse around King George's portrait for faint elements of the reverse. A die clash is not the same as a scratch. A clash transfers part of an opposite die design. It may repeat a recognizable curve, letter fragment, or leaf shape. A scratch is normally random and cuts into the surface. The third category includes die cracks and die chips. Inspect around the lettering on the obverse, especially near Georgiev's, Rex, and the lower part of the portrait. On the reverse, inspect the letters in cent and the leaves. A die crack creates a raised line because metal flows into a crack in the die. A scratch creates an incuse line because material is removed from the coin. The fourth feature is a planchy flaw. Copper-based planchies can contain impurities, laminations, rough areas, or sections where the metal separates. A genuine lamination may look like a thin layer peeling away from the surface. The affected metal should still appear consistent with the coin's composition. Corrosion can imitate this appearance. Green powder, pitting, and soft crumbly areas are usually environmental damage rather than a mint-created lamination. Now comes the auction story. Certified auction records show a massive difference between ordinary and exceptional 1946 cents. Many MS-63 and MS-64 examples trade for only modest amounts. MS-65 examples average much more. One MS-66 example recorded approximately 3,272 Canadian dollars. Specimen examples have also brought substantial premiums, with recorded sales above $1,000 and some higher grade examples above $2,000. Why? Because copper is unforgiving. A coin may leave the mint bright red. Then fingerprints, humidity, storage chemicals, friction, and cleaning permanently change its surface. Surviving for decades with strong original color and very few marks is far rarer than surviving as a worn brown penny. This means a flawless-looking 1946 cent should not be handled by the face. Hold it only by the edge. Store it in an inert holder. Do not wipe dust from it. Even a soft cloth can create hairline scratches. The 1946 penny in your image appears worn and brown, with flattened details on the maple leaves and lettering. It is still an authentic historical coin, but the photograph does not show the preservation associated with the record-setting certified examples. That does not mean you should ignore it. Check the date for double digits. Examine beneath the leaves for clash marks. Search the obverse for raised die cracks. Inspect the edge and surface for a genuine planche flaw. Then compare it with a normal 1946 cent. Error identification becomes easier when you have a control coin beside it. Comment King George if you have any Canadian penny showing King George VI. Positive comments like that help collectors connect with one another and compare dates without making fake claims. Our final coin is the oldest in this group. It also has the highest regular high-grade guide value among these 5 dates, but condition remains everything. Research basis, 1946 value guide, auction.
Number 3. The 1952 wheat penny may not look like anything special at first. Most people would pass it by without a second thought. But one rare variety carries one of the most dramatic double die errors of the wheat penny series. The doubling is so bold that, on the right coin, you can often spot it without expensive equipment. And exceptional examples have sold for up to $10,000. The secret isn't hidden in the mint mark or buried in a tiny detail. It's right on the front of the coin. This is known as a double die obverse. During the die-making process, the working die receives multiple impressions from the hub that transfers the design. If the die shifts slightly between those impressions, it permanently records 2 images instead of 1. Every coin struck by that die carries the exact same doubling in exactly the same locations. Unlike damage that happens after the coin leaves the mint, this mistake is part of the die itself and was created before the first coin was ever struck. On the 1952 doubled die, the strongest doubling usually appears on "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and sometimes the date. Instead of crisp single letters, you'll notice characters that appear thicker than normal, with a second rounded image beside the original. Once you recognize genuine double die doubling, it immediately stands out from an ordinary coin. Now take a close look at your own 1952 wheat penny. Start with "In God We Trust" across the top. Then move to Liberty on the left side, followed by the date. Do the letters appear unusually bold? Can you see a second image beside them with clear separation? That's exactly what collectors hope to find. But here's where many people make a costly mistake. They confuse machine doubling with a genuine doubled die. Machine doubling happens during the striking process and usually creates flat shelf-like edges that look smeared or pushed sideways. It is very common and usually adds little or no value. A true doubled die is completely different. The doubling is rounded, fully raised, and shows distinct separation because it was built directly into the die before any coins were struck. Learning the difference can save you from overlooking a valuable variety or mistakenly thinking an ordinary coin is rare. Strong double die varieties from the wheat penny era are highly sought after because relatively few escaped into circulation. Once mint employees discovered a defective die, it was normally removed from service and replaced. That limited the number of coins produced before the error disappeared. Decades later, many surviving examples have become worn from circulation, making sharply detailed pieces much harder to find. Collectors are always searching for well-preserved examples with bold, unmistakable doubling. One collector discovered that firsthand while helping clean out his grandfather's home. Inside an old cigar box were hundreds of wheat pennies collected over a lifetime. At first, they looked like ordinary pocket change. But one 19.52 caught his attention because the lettering seemed unusually thick. Under magnification, the doubling became obvious. After comparing it with known double die varieties, he sent the coin for professional authentication. It was confirmed as a genuine double die obverse, and when it was later offered at auction, competitive bidding pushed the final price to approximately $10,000. What looked like a simple 1-cent coin became the most valuable item in the entire box. So before you spend or ignore another 1952 wheat penny, take a few moments to inspect the lettering on the front. Study In God We Trust, Liberty, and the date under good lighting. If you find bold, rounded, well-separated doubling that matches a genuine double die variety, you could be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars. It might look like an ordinary penny, but to the right collector, it could be an extraordinary discovery. But the next wheat penny hides its value in a mistake that is much smaller and even easier to miss.
Averages, double 46, die clash, and high-grade sales. The 1969 Canadian penny is one of the easiest dates to exaggerate because it appears old, it is made from a copper-based alloy, and many circulated examples show unusual surface marks. But the ordinary 1969 cent is not rare. More than 335 million were produced, making the date widely available. Its value comes from exceptional condition or a genuine mint-created variety, not simply from the year 1969. The first variety to inspect is the doubled 1969 date. Place the coin under magnification and focus on each digit. Look for repeated raised portions along the outer edges. The strongest areas may appear around the curves of the 9 and 6 or along the vertical stem of the 1. However, the recorded 1969 double date variety has also been described as die deterioration doubling. That means collectors must be careful. Die deterioration can produce thick, distorted, or shelf-like edges rather than the clean separation expected from a classic double die. Do not automatically label every thick digit a double die. The second error is a clipped planche. Inspect the entire edge. Look for a smooth, curved section missing from the blank. Check for weakness opposite the clip. A clip that removes part of the date or lettering may be visually dramatic, but authentication still matters. A person can cut a normal penny in seconds. Certification is what separates a recognized mint error from altered metal. The third possibility is an off-center strike or partial collar. An off-center strike occurs when the blank is not centered correctly between the dies. Part of the design may be missing while an unstruck area remains visible. The value often depends on the percentage off-center and whether the full date remains readable. A partial collar occurs when the coin is not fully seated inside the collar during striking. Part of the edge may appear wider or stepped. Collectors sometimes call this a railroad rim appearance. The fourth and most exciting error is a flip over double strike. A flip over double strike occurs when a coin receives one strike, moves or flips, and is struck again. Portions of the design may appear on both sides in unusual orientations. A certified 1969 Canadian cent described as a flip over strike had a clear date on each side and was graded MS63 red by PCGs. Heritage Auction sold it for $184 in 2005. Another certified flip over double strike later sold for approximately $276. Those prices are not remotely close to $126,500, but the errors are still desirable because the minting sequence can be read directly from the coin. To inspect for a double strike, look beyond the date, search for repeated leaf outlines, look for fragments of letters where they do not belong. Check whether part of the queen's portrait appears underneath or across another design. The secondary design should be raised and connected to the minting process. Random scratches crossing the coin do not form complete letters, digits, or portrait features. Now inspect the 1969 coin shown in your image. The reverse appears worn, with pale green or gray material near the right maple leaf and rim. That may be corrosion, residue, or environmental damage. It is not enough to identify a mint error. The date looks worn rather than sharply doubled in this single photograph. A close macro image of the date and both sides would be required before making a stronger judgment. A normal circulated 1969 cent may be worth only a few cents. A certified high-grade example may bring more. The price guide lists the doubled 1969 variety around 141 Canadian dollars in MS66, while ordinary MS66 examples are far lower. The difference is not the story someone tells about the coin. The difference is the physical evidence on the coin. If you have a 1969 penny, photograph the date directly from above. Do not tilt the camera. Use side lighting from one direction. Then take a second photograph with the light coming from the opposite direction. True rays doubling remains visible. Shadows caused by damage often change dramatically. Comment double strike if this is the first time you have learned how a coin can show a date on both sides. Next is the 1946 cent, where preservation can matter more than the small errors themselves. Research Basis 1969 Mintage Varieties Price Guide and Heritage Flip Over Strike Records. The 1974 cent becomes
Number 2. The 1940 wheat penny may look like just another old cent, but one rare variety has collectors searching for it year after year. The small S mint mark tells you it was struck in San Francisco, and on a special version of this coin, that tiny letter was punched into the die twice. The result is one of the most desirable repunched mint mark varieties in the entire wheat penny series. Exceptional certified examples have sold for up to $12,000. The secret is hidden in one of the smallest details on the coin. During the 1940s, mint marks were still added to each working die by hand. A mint employee placed a steel punch on the die and struck it with a hammer. If the first impression landed slightly off-center, another punch was used to correct it. When those two impressions failed to line up perfectly, both remained in the die forever. Every coin struck from that die carried the exact same overlapping mint mark. On the 1940 wheat penny, the second S can often be seen peeking out from behind the primary mint mark, creating what collectors call the S over S repunched mint mark. At first glance, the mint mark may look perfectly normal, but under magnification, the hidden variety begins to reveal itself. Instead of one clean S, you may notice extra curves extending from the top or bottom of the letter. On stronger examples, the second S is surprisingly obvious, almost like a shadow sitting directly beneath the main mint mark. Once you know what to look for, it becomes much easier to recognize. Now grab your 1940 S wheat penny and examine the mint mark below the date using a 10x coin loop or magnifying glass. Rotate the coin slowly under a bright light. Do you see one crisp S, or are there extra curves showing beneath it? A genuine RPM will display clear, rounded impressions from two separate punches. Don't confuse it with machine doubling, which usually appears flat, shelf-like, or smeared. A true repunched mint mark shows distinct separation because both impressions were made during the creation of the die itself, long before the coin was struck. Here's another detail that many collectors overlook. Condition matters just as much as the variety. A heavily worn example may still attract interest, but the biggest prices are reserved for coins with full original mint luster, sharp details, and especially original red color. Copper coins naturally darken over time, so finding a 1940 SRPM that still retains its bright red surfaces decades later is extremely difficult. That combination of a scarce variety and outstanding preservation is exactly what advanced Lincoln cent collectors are willing to pay a premium for. The 1940 SS over S RPM has been recognized and collected for decades. Because the variety is well documented, specialists actively search dealer inventories, estate collections, and old wheat penny jars, hoping to find one that has gone unnoticed. Many examples spent years in circulation before anyone knew they were collectible, making attractive high-grade survivors increasingly difficult to locate today. One experienced collector learned just how valuable this variety could be while searching through an old dealer's stock box filled with common wheat pennies. Most buyers passed over the coins without a second glance. But after spotting a 1940 S, he examined the mint mark under his loupe and immediately noticed the second S beneath the first. The coin still displayed beautiful original red color and almost no signs of circulation. After professional authentication and grading, it was confirmed as a genuine S over S repunched mint mark. When it eventually crossed the auction block, competitive bidding from Lincoln cent specialists pushed the final price to approximately $12,000. So before you overlook another 1940 S wheat penny, take a closer look at that tiny S below the date. It could be hiding one of the most famous repunched mint mark varieties in the series. If you find clear overlapping impressions, strong original detail, and attractive red color, you may be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars. And now it's time for number one, the most valuable wheat penny you could realistically discover in an old coin jar, inherited collection, or forgotten box of spare change.
Interesting because collectors have documented several different error types for this date, including rotated dies, clipped planches, and an extraordinary bonded planche combination involving cent and 10-cent material. Start with the date. Inspect all 4 digits, especially the final 4. Look for extra raised metal separated outlines, or portions of a digit appearing more than once. Small die chips may form near the numbers as a die begins to crack or break. A chip normally appears as an added raised lump. Damage to the coin usually appears as a cut, gouge, or flattened area. Next, examine the rim. A normal coin should have a reasonably complete circular rim. If part of the rim is missing, determine whether the metal was absent before striking or removed afterward. A genuine clipped planche often creates a smooth missing curve. The design near the clip may be weak, and the opposite rim may show reduced pressure. A coin damaged with pliers or machinery after leaving the mint may have crushed metal, sharp bends, or irregular tearing. The third test is die rotation. Use the same vertical flip method. Keep the reverse portrait upright. Flip the coin from top to bottom. Watch where the reverse design lands. A dramatic rotation is easier to authenticate than a tiny misalignment. Photograph both sides in the same holder so the angle can be demonstrated clearly. The fourth and most unusual possibility is a bonded planchet or wrong planchet combination. A documented 1974 Canadian cent was described as struck on bonded cent and 10-cent planchet material with a recorded weight of approximately 5.4 grams. This is not something that can be identified from color alone. The first warning sign is abnormal weight. A standard Canadian cent from this period is approximately 3.24 grams. A substantially heavier coin deserves further examination, particularly when the diameter, edge, metal, or strike also appears unusual. Use a digital scale capable of reading to at least 1/100th of a gram. Calibrate the scale first. Weigh a normal cent of the same period for comparison. Then inspect the edge. A bonded or unusual planchet may show an unexpected seam, layered appearance, abnormal thickness, or metal that does not match a regular cent. Do not pry at the edge, do not file it. Do not perform an acid test. Destructive testing can ruin the coin and its evidence. Now consider rarity. A normal 1974 cent is common. A high-grade red example becomes scarcer because copper reacts quickly with handling, moisture, and air. A dramatic mint error is scarcer still because it had to escape quality control and survive without being damaged. Auction averages show MS67 examples around 657 Canadian dollars. Recorded rotated die pieces have been much lower, around 26 to 65 Canadian dollars depending on grade. The bonded cent and 10-cent planchet error graded MS62 recorded approximately 649 Canadian dollars. This auction result teaches an important lesson. A dramatic description does not guarantee a six-figure price. Market value depends on eye appeal, certification, rarity within the error class, and how many serious bidders are competing at that moment. The 1974 coin shown in your image has dark brown surfaces, heavy circulation wear, and large areas where the original detail is weak. That alone does not prove a mint error. Inspect the rim. Check the rotation. Weigh the coin. Look for added raised metal rather than scratches. Also inspect the small initials beside the right maple leaf. Those letters are part of the original design. They are not evidence that the coin came from a secret mint. This is where many viral coin videos go wrong. They circle a normal design element, call it an error, attach a fantasy value, and mislead thousands of viewers. Do not become that collector. Become the person who can explain why a feature is a genuine mint error. Write "weigh it" in the comments if you have a digital coin scale. That positive comment will also help other collectors realize that weight is one of the strongest first tests for an unusual planchet. The next coin has a documented flip over double strike that can be recognized without guessing. Research basis: 1974 certified auction averages, rotated die records, in the bonded cent and 10-cent planchet sale.
Number 1. The 1944 D wheat penny is the undisputed crown jewel of this list. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary penny, but one incredibly rare version was struck on the wrong metal entirely. Instead of copper, it was struck on a leftover steel planchet, creating one of the most famous error coins in American history. Today, exceptional authenticated examples have sold for up to $80,000, and collectors still dream of finding one. To understand why this coin is so valuable, you have to go back to World War II. In 1943, copper was desperately needed for the war effort, so the U.S. Mint temporarily stopped making pennies from copper and produced them from zinc-coated steel instead. Those silver-colored 1943 steel cents became one of the most recognizable coins ever made. The following year, in 1944, the mint returned to using copper. But a few 1943 steel planches were accidentally left behind inside the presses. When those leftover blanks were struck with 1944 dies, they created one of the rarest off-metal errors in the entire Lincoln cent series. The result was a 1944 penny made of steel, even though every normal 1944 D cent should have been struck on a copper planche. That single production mistake transformed an ordinary 1-cent coin into a legendary rarity. Every genuine example tells the story of a tiny oversight at the mint that survived quality control and entered circulation. Unlike many minor varieties that require magnification to identify, this error practically announces itself the moment you see it. Now take a close look at your 1944 D wheat penny. The very first clue is its color. A normal coin from 1944 will appear brown, reddish-brown, or red copper depending on its condition. But a genuine steel cent looks completely different. It has a silver-gray appearance that immediately stands out from every other wheat penny of that year. If your coin looks silver instead of copper, don't dismiss it as being cleaned or damaged. It deserves a closer inspection. The next step is the easiest test of all. Grab a small magnet. A normal copper penny will not stick to a magnet. A genuine 1944 steel cent will, because steel is magnetic. That simple test has helped identify some of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered. If your silver-colored 1944 D sticks firmly to a magnet, you found a coin that deserves immediate professional attention. If you have access to a precise digital scale, weigh the coin as well. A standard copper 1944 wheat penny weighs about 3.18 grams, while a steel cent weighs approximately 2.70 grams. Color, magnetic attraction, and the correct weight together provide strong evidence that the coin may have been struck on the wrong planche. Of course, authentication by a respected grading service is essential, because altered coins and counterfeits do exist. The 1944 steel cent is one of the most celebrated error coins in American numismatics because so few genuine examples escaped the mint. Across all three mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, only a tiny number are known today. That extreme rarity is exactly what fuels collector demand. Museums display them. Advanced collectors compete fiercely whenever one appears for sale. Even experienced coin hunters can spend a lifetime searching without ever seeing one in person. One remarkable discovery began with nothing more than a handful of pocket change. A teenager noticed that one of his 1944 pennies looked silver instead of copper. He thought it was unusual, but instead of spending it, he tucked it away in a drawer where it remained for years. Much later, after learning about the famous 1944 steel cent, he tested it with a magnet. It stuck immediately. The coin was eventually submitted to a professional grading service, where experts confirmed it was a genuine 1944 D steel wheat penny struck on a leftover steel planche. When it crossed the auction block, collectors recognized just how extraordinary it was. Intense bidding followed, and the coin ultimately realized more than $80,000, all because someone took a second look at what appeared to be an ordinary penny. So here's your mission. Pull out every 1944 wheat penny you own. Start with the color. If one looks silver instead of copper, don't ignore it. Test it with a magnet. If it sticks, don't clean it, don't polish it, and don't spend it. Store it safely and have it authenticated by a professional grading service. You could be holding one of the rarest and most valuable Lincoln wheat pennies ever produced, an incredible reminder that sometimes the biggest treasures are hiding in the smallest coins. So there you have it. 5 Lincoln wheat pennies with a combined potential value of more than $110,000. The incredible part is that these coins haven't disappeared. Some are still sitting in old coin jars, cigar boxes, family collections, and forgotten drawers that haven't been opened in decades. And because most people assume every wheat penny is worth just 1 cent, Valuable discoveries continue to slip through the cracks every year. Now I want to hear from you. Which wheat penny do you already have?
This penny was struck during the Second World War. That history gives it emotional appeal, but the date itself was produced in enormous numbers. More than 89,1943 cents entered circulation. A worn example is therefore not rare simply because it is more than 80 years old. The first feature to inspect is a die chip on the number 4. Place the date under magnification. Look inside and around the 4 for an added raised lump of metal. A die chip occurs when a small piece breaks away from the die. During striking, metal flows into that damaged area, leaving a raised blob or filled section on the coin. A dent will push metal inward, a die chip adds raised metal. The second error is a die clash above the date or beneath the leaves. Inspect the open fields carefully. Look for faint raised shapes that resemble portions of the opposite design. Because clash marks can be weak, change the lighting angle. Do not increase image sharpness so aggressively that digital artifacts appear. A real clash must exist on the physical coin, not only after editing. The third feature is a die crack. Known examples have shown cracks near lettering, around the portrait, and near the leaves. Trace any raised line from one design element toward another. Die cracks often begin near the rim or connect letters. A dark line alone proves nothing. Corrosion can create channels. Dirt can settle into scratches. The line must be raised above the surrounding field. The fourth possibility is a flawed planche. Inspect for rough metal, laminations, missing flakes, or areas that appear to have separated before or during striking. Again, do not confuse this with decades of environmental corrosion. Corrosion usually attacks the exposed surface irregularly and may produce pits or green deposits. A planche flaw is part of the metal itself and may continue underneath the struck design. Now consider the value. A heavily worn 1943 cent may retail for less than $2 Canadian. Mint state values rise sharply, particularly when the coin retains strong red color. The price guide lists an MS65 example around 216 Canadian dollars and an MS66 example around 3,980 Canadian dollars. Heritage Auctions sold a PCG's MS65 red example with full brilliant luster for $276 in 2006. The auction story proves the central point of this entire video. The year does not create the value by itself. A 1943 cent can be worth pocket change, a few dollars, hundreds, or potentially several thousand in exceptional certified condition. But there is no credible evidence that an ordinary 1943 Canadian penny is worth $126,500. The Canadian cent that genuinely reached six figures was the legendary 1936 dot cent. One example sold for $246,750 in 2013. Another famous example brought $402,500 in 2010. That is a different date, a different rarity, and a completely different historical situation. Never transfer the auction value of one famous coin onto an unrelated penny. The 1943 coin shown in your image has dark spots, reddish patches, wear, and uneven surfaces. Those details should be examined closely, but they appear more consistent with circulation and environmental exposure than with a dramatic six-figure mint error. Still, inspect the 4. Search for raised die chips. Check the fields for clash marks. Look for raised cracks. Examine the planche under angled light. And if you believe you have a major error, do not sell it to the first person who sends you a private message. Take clear photographs of both sides. Record the weight and diameter. Protect the coin. Then consult a recognized grading service or reputable Canadian error specialist. I am not the owner of these coins. I am the guide showing you what evidence must exist before a value claim deserves to be believed. Now tell me in the comments which of these 5 years you own. Write 1943, 1946, 1969, 1974, or 1975. I read the comments, and your year may become the subject of the next inspection guide. Like this video if it helped you separate real mint errors from ordinary damage. Follow Coin Hunt Daily on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube for more coin guides based on genuine varieties and documented auction records. And share this video with one person who keeps old Canadian pennies. They may not have a six-figure coin, but they could still have an error worth identifying properly.
Is it a 1944D, a 1952, a 1940S, or another date entirely? Drop the year and mint mark in the comments below. I read as many comments as I can, and if you have something interesting, I'll help point you in the right direction and tell you what to check next. If you enjoyed this hunt, tap the like button and follow the channel. Every week, I cover rare coins, valuable errors, and hidden varieties that could be sitting in everyday collections. If you're on Facebook, you can also follow Coin Hunt Daily, where I share even more coins and collecting tips. And here's one last challenge. Share this video with someone who keeps old coins, a parent, grandparent, friend, or anyone with a forgotten coin jar tucked away in a closet. You never know. They might already own a rare wheat penny without realizing it. If you're not finished hunting yet, you're in luck. I just put together another video featuring more than $144,000 worth of rare quarters, dimes, half dollars, and dollar coins that collectors are still searching for today. Click that video now, and let's see if your next incredible coin is waiting there. I'll see you in the next one.